Okay, I think we'll get started. Good evening and welcome to the 2011 Commissioners Forum. My name is Lana Mutler. I'm the editor of The Express and I will be your moderator for tonight's event. The Express is pleased to present this forum, giving opportunity to the county commissioner candidates to answer questions from our panelists, our readers, and each other. There's a lot going on in the county these days, and it's for sure there will be some major decisions that our county leaders will have to make in the next 4 years. There's a lot of information circulating through the community that begs for answers from these 5 men whose names will appear on the ballot in the November 8th general election. As we gather here tonight, we will provide a forum for those questions to be asked and hear the answers from the candidates who want to lead our county for the next 4 years. We have broken the evening down into 3 question and answer segments, and then a time for our candidates to offer remarks. The first portion of our forum will have 3 panelists ask questions they have prepared for the candidates. Each panelist will ask 2 questions. Each candidate will be given 2 minutes to respond. Next, we will allow our readers and the audience to participate. Many have sent questions to the Express. Others have submitted questions tonight. We have chosen a few questions that we feel are of importance to our voters. Again, candidates will be given 2 minutes to respond. The third segment of the program will allow candidates to ask each other questions. We hope this will provide opportunity for a back-and-forth exchange between our candidates. As far as time goes, we'll measure that by the dialogue that ensues. And finally, all of the candidates will have 3 minutes to present their closing comments, telling the audience what they want them to know and why they feel they should be elected your county commissioner. Now, before we get started, let me make some introductions. First, our panelists. Ladies first. Karen Stratton, owner of 99.9 The Bear radio station in McElhatton. John Lopez, veteran radio announcer and owner of The Record, a Renova weekly newspaper. And Dr. Stan Berard, a political science professor at Lock Haven University. And now for our honored guests, the 5 Clinton County Commissioner candidates. Republicans, Jeff Snyder and Pete Smeltz. Democrats, Adam Coleman and Joe Long. And Richard Morris, who is running on the Independent Party ticket. The 5 candidates are seeking 3 commissioner seats. Express staff writer Scott Johnson will be manning the timer tonight. When you are alerted that your time is up, please complete your thoughts in a timely manner. Also helping out tonight are fellow members of the Express editorial staff. Adam Federuski and Justin Packer will be collecting questions from the audience. Wendy Stiver and Liz Regan are our greeters and ushers. Bill Krause manning the camera, and Jim Runkle is on duty as tonight's reporter. Also in the house is Dave Stratton, Karen's husband, who has been a big help with the sound system. And his helper, Ryan Stratton. Before we begin taking questions from our panelists, I'd like to give Commissioner Adam Coleman an opportunity to comment on the recent charges brought against him. Adam?
Thank you, Ann. Obviously, there's been a lot of attention given to me in the last 5 weeks here in the county. I'm glad that you asked me this first so we can get the giant white elephant in the room out of the way and get on to the important issues of what's going on in this campaign. There's plenty of other things to talk about than the allegations that have been made against me. I guess the best thing to do is to start at the beginning with what is going on. A number of years ago, somebody who I thought was a friend of mine and was trying to help me came to me after work one evening and said, Adam, you have a bill that's due. They're going to take it to the district justice office. I don't want to see that happen. At the time, I was just about ready to close on my house, and because of the type of USDA loan that I was getting for my home, what was in my checking account the day that the bank checked it is what had to be there on the day of closing, or I wouldn't have been able to close on my home. Mr. Clark said to me, I can help you out. I have a discretionary fund at my use that I can use for certain things as I see fit. He says, we'll work it like a loan. I'll loan you the money to pay the bill. You pay me back. Everything will be fine. Had I known that there was no discretionary fund as I was told, I never would have accepted his help, and I would have faced my fate with the District Justice Office about making payments on the bill. But unfortunately, years later down the road, we come to find out that there was no such fund, and that I was duped by somebody who I thought was trying to help me. On top of that issue, there was another issue that arose about an Elks grant. My only involvement in the Elks grant was the fact that I was the exalted ruler of the local lodge at the time that the grant was applied for. After the grant was applied for and we were awarded the grant, the way the grant was laid out, the director of the YMCA and the exalted ruler of the Elks Lodge had to sign for a checking account for this special money to be put into. It could not go in one fund or the other. It had to be its own special fund. My involvement there was, I was the exalted ruler. So I had to co-sign on the account to open for this special grant that was got. From that point until the point where I got an email that said there was only a small amount of money left in the grant fund, that was my only involvement with that Elks grant. I received a call from the Elks National Foundation outlining the reporting procedures for the grant. And I passed on the information to the young lady that I spoke to from the Elks National Foundation, that I had nothing in it, gave her Mr. Clark's information, how to contact him, since he was the one who was running the grant. That was the last I heard anything about that grant until the day that I got an email saying the checking account was needing to be closed out because the grant funds were gone. When I spoke with the Attorney General's office about this, I laid everything out just as I've done to you here tonight. There was no comment made to me at any time that I was under any investigation. The premise of the investigator coming to talk to me, according to the business card that he gave me, was to speak with me about the Jerry Clark investigation. In no way, shape, or form did he say I was under investigation. When we left the meeting that day, there was no further talk of me being charged with any criminal offenses. I was under the assumption that the guy was talking to me about the Jerry Clark investigation. So, now that we have that out on the table, I know that that's been on a lot of people's mind. Obviously, it's been on my mind for the last 5 weeks. I hope that we can get into the real issues of what's going on with this election and why you should vote for 2 of the 5 of us to fill the 3 seats that we have open. Thank you.
Okay. Now let's get started with questions from our panelists. I will alter the order in which the candidates answer the question. We'll take the first question from Karen, then John, and Dr. Berard. Each panelist will ask 2 questions. Karen, we'll get started with you.
Okay, thank you, Glenn. Thanks for having us here, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming. My question is, several commissioners in the past have thrown themselves into particular causes. Rusty Bottorff became an environmental activist during the Drake Superfund cleanup back in '98. Bud Yost is largely credited with spearheading the community center for senior citizens that recently opened. If you are elected or a re-elected commissioner, what would be your top priority or pet cause in making Clinton County a better place to live and work?
Okay, let's start at the other end of the table. Mr. Snowden, we'll start with you.
Thank you. I think the biggest issue that's on every resident's mind in Clinton County is the Marcellus industry. I have stated this before, I'm going to state it again this evening. We currently have part-time commissioners. They're not putting in the full hours in the day that are required to be needed to move this county forward. I have said that I'm going to be a full-time commissioner. We had a town hall meeting months ago where there were some safety issues discussed. Were there any benefits from the county from that meeting? I don't think so. That same evening, it was brought up that the people that attended were concerned about the environmental issues. It was asked that evening that something be set up to talk about the environmental issues. That has not occurred. I am committed to work with this industry and keep this county safe. There's only so much we can do about the road traffic, but one thing you're not going to hear from me is that it's not a county problem. You come to me, we're going to work something out, we're going to make this county better. Thank you.
Mr. Smeltz.
There are a number of issues that are important in this county, but I would have to agree with Mr. Snyder. I only agree that as I've traveled about and listened to people's voices, that is probably the question that's asked the most, is the balance between the Marcellus Shale industry and how we're going to maintain our quality of life in Clinton County and continue to allow the gas development. I would say, though, that the number one issue is jobs. And I think always, and no matter what, if you look across America, we need to, in order for Clinton County to be a reliable and a friendly and a quality place to live, we need to always do our best to maintain jobs. And the new companies coming, the announcement of the Baker Hughes company, which is gas drilling related, helps to do that. And therefore, we do need to do what we can to also draw in other non-gas related jobs into the area. I'd like to look beyond and see that we can find some other industries so that we don't become too dependent upon just the Marcellus gas industry. But as a county commissioner, and I might get a chance later to discuss the gas task force, which we have in place, I believe there's a lot of things that we can accomplish and resolve some of the issues that concern you through that Marcellus gas task force. And right now, I believe they become ineffective to the degree that they can be. So I would address those things.
Thank you. Mr. Morris.
Yeah, I think we all would. Marcellus is a big issue. I'm not convinced how much it is within the gift of the county to address these issues. Every piece of Marcellus activity that takes place under a lease that's either with the state or with a private individual. And we have to be really smart in making sure that as we intervene in that process, we do so in a way that is going to protect our environment and our way of life, while at the same time capitalising on the economic benefits that that is going to bring to us. There's another issue too, which is kind of a pet issue of mine and maybe not shared so much by the other people behind this table. I'm very much concerned about the internal workings of our county government. I believe we have a vast amount of potential in that government. I'm not convinced that we capitalise on all of it in the way that we could, nor am I convinced that we run the government as leanly and as economically as we could. We'll probably get into that a little more later. But yes, I have an external focus on how we make Marcellus work for all of us. I'm also very concerned about how we make the government work for all of us.
Thank you. Mr. Long?
Thank you. I guess I needed to address the first comment that was made that you have part-time commissioners right now. I don't know what people feel about me being part-time, but I am there and put in more than full-time. Full-time doesn't mean you're there necessarily from 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock because you have meetings outside the building, you have meetings after hours, you are constantly on the go as a county commissioner. I am a full-time commissioner. That being said, my focus has primarily been on technology over the last 4 years, and I continue to do that. I'm currently working with KCNet, MX Wireless, and Mike Hanna to bring real-time reporting from the gas wells on their progress and what's going on there to DEP. We can do this within months, not years, and make sure that our county is protected, and also expand the amount of services that our public has available to it. And that's one of my pet projects. Obviously, I've spent the last 4 years streamlining our government as well. Is there more to do? Absolutely. This government never moves quickly. And that's probably a good thing, because anytime someone moves too quickly, they make mistakes. But we have already implemented a new computer system, we put new phone systems in, we have trimmed staff, and we continue to look for better ways to improve and streamline. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman.
I have to agree with my current colleague Joel here. Just because our vehicles aren't there at the garden building at any given time between the hours of 8 and 5 doesn't mean that we aren't being full-time. Like Joel said, there are many meetings that we have that fall outside of the garden building or the courthouse. There are many meetings that we have that are outside of the normal hours of work. To the pet project issue, approximately 2.5 years ago, when Anadarko first came to the garden building to speak with the 3 county commissioners about this rock formation that was underneath us that none of us at the time knew anything about, I knew at that point in time that this was going to be a hot button issue. I really immersed myself in the Marcellus Shale issue within Clinton County. I thought it was very important that we move forward and have some sort of educational clearinghouse for our residents so that everybody has the proper information to make an informed decision about what's going on with the Marcellus Shale industry. That's when I took the initiative to form our natural gas task force here in the county. And over the last 2 years, we've gotten a lot of praise for what we've done with the task force, and we've also taken some criticism, and that's fine. Not everybody's going to like that issue. Obviously, there are a lot of us that are concerned about the environmental aspects of what's going on. There are a lot of us who are concerned about the economic impacts that are going on, and what our task force is doing, and is doing effectively, is trying to create that balance between those 2 issues, since those are the main 2 issues.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Lopez, you're next.
My question would be, would you consider and implement, for reasons of continuity of county operations, hiring a trained financial business professional to be involved in the day-to-day affairs of county government, an administrator who would report directly to the commissioners, and at the same time allow the county to do away with its financial services consulting firm?
Okay, Mr. Smeltz, I think we'll start with you.
The short answer to your question is no, but the subject material you bring up is of concern to me in attending commissioners' meetings and looking at the budget. The Commissioner Long mentioned the implementation of the computer technology, and they did a good job implementing a financial management system, that part was good. The services have been provided, Susquehanna Group, I believe is the name of the company. They have been on board since, I believe, around 2004, providing financial assistance to the county commissioners, and they helped implement this new system. There comes a point in time, however, after I believe we spent, since 2004, some $485,000 on those services. I don't know what it is in 2011. And most of that was necessary. Again, don't get me wrong. But we have 3 commissioners, and one of the areas that I managed, or did in my previous employment, was manage my own budgets. And I believe working, and this is in accordance with county code as well, working with the clerical supervisor, the chief clerk, the 3 commissioners should be capable, and I know that I'm capable, of using, that we need a computer system, or the one that was implemented needs to be one that I can get reports out of weekly, or perhaps daily. And working with the other 3 commissioners would be able to manage the county budget without the need of but a few hours of private enterprise services, as opposed to the tune of $80,000 or $90,000 a year. I believe we could do that quite well.
Thank you. Mr. Morris?
I'm starting to see some old ghosts rising here, so let's deal with them all now. 3 or 4 years ago, there was a lot of criticism about the then Board of Commissioners because they were part-time, they rode tractors in the afternoon, and the county was going to the dogs. Therefore, we need an entirely different form of government. We need a financial manager and God knows what else. That is all just hogwash. You elect 3 commissioners who are supposed to be competent and intelligent people. There is nothing in local government finance that's anything other than basically applied common sense. And let me also deal with the part-time issue. It was not a fair criticism at the time. It is certainly not a fair criticism now. And in the time that has gone by, you only have to have a 5-minute conversation with these 2 guys, and at the end of the first sentence, they're staring at their smartphones, and their thumbs are going like you wouldn't believe. We have so much connectivity now. You do not need to appear to be in the office from 9 to 5 to be actively engaged on the work that you have been elected to do. So let's put that one aside. No, we do not need a financial manager. We need people who sit and look at the numbers and ask intelligent questions, and we have perfectly competent people to assist the commissioners in doing that. Sorry, I got irritated. No, we don't need a financial manager. No, we don't need to run the county like a business. We can't because it isn't. But we can run it in a business-like way. And you don't have to have an MBA to do that. You just need common sense, good staff. We have both.
Thank you. Mr. Long?
First of all, I'd like to thank Pete for his compliment on the new software. I spearheaded that. I came into office offering those kinds of changes. I said it then that we don't need a financial manager, that we hire someone to do that, that I felt that if we put the right tools in place and we hired the right people, we can do the job. We've made those adjustments. The software was just implemented this year. And in fact, I just was speaking to our chief clerk recently about the fact that we wanted to go one more year where the Susquehanna Group helped us through the budget because our first time actually using the new software with that budget. And after that, we should be able to wean them off of that part of their help to us. Do I see us ending that relationship with them? No. They provide a number of financial services that we can go back to and use them for, but we shouldn't have to rely on them for day-to-day operation. And that's the kind of changes that I've made in my 4 years. And I expect to continue to make those kind of changes.
Coleman.
John, in short to your question, no, I'm not in favor of hiring a specialized person for a financial job. Shortly after Joel and I started our first term here, I can recall a conversation where we had talked of cutting down the amount of dependency we were having on Susquehanna Group Advisors. They are an excellent firm. They are an excellent company. They have done excellent work for Clinton County over the years. But we had talked about slowly phasing that out. Had it not been for the move into the new financial software, this year probably their workload would have been cut probably by 75%. We relied on them heavily this year with the implementation of the new software system. That's why they're still here. That's why they're helping us through the budget. Not helping us through the budget, telling us what numbers to put in, helping us to get everything input into exactly where it goes, so everything comes out and it's all nice and uniform looking, that Mr. Runkle doesn't have to look for 15 different pages to find the number that he's looking for at our commissioners' meetings. So, no, I don't. I'm not in favor of hiring a specialized person. Between the chief clerk, 3 county commissioners, the treasurer, and the 3 elected auditors, that's what we need to do for the financial project or financial package for the entire county, and slowly phase out with Susquehanna Group.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder?
Thank you. I'm going to disagree with what one of the candidates said. I think that the finances of the county definitely do need to be run like a business. I've owned my own business for 33 years. I know how to run budgets. I know how to run a business. I've been on the school board for 20 years. 18 of those years I've been the chairman of the finance committee. This year our budget in Keystone Central was $63 million. I've already talked to the current treasurer. I've talked to the auditors. I believe it's the commissioners, the auditors, the treasurer's office that puts a budget together. I need to find out what else, and I agree with Mr. Wong to some degree, that this financial advisor does. But where I totally disagree, if Clinton County needs a financial advisor, why are we spending tax dollars for someone from Harrisburg? We have adequate financial advisors in Clinton County. Let's keep the tax dollars in Clinton County where they belong. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Berard, your question, please.
Thank you for having me. This is my honor to be here. I want to return to the Marcellus Shale issue. Governor Corbett recently issued a set of policy proposals, and I'd like to know your view of the particular strengths and any possible weaknesses in those proposals for Clinton County as we deal with the coming development of the gas industry.
Okay, Mr. Morris.
Why did I get the hard one? I think I've made no secret of the fact that I believe the impact fee is basically selling our birthright for a mess of pottage. Marcellus Shale is a huge, huge resource. I can't profess to understand the economics of it because they all seem to me to be counterintuitive. The more the price goes down, the more gas you sever. And the more foreign investment you're able to attract into doing that. This is hugely, hugely profitable. The drillers that we're familiar with have attracted something like $70 billion worth of external investment in their operations. They basically sold ahead all of their future earnings in order to finance more land acquisition, acquisition of mineral rights and more drilling activity. So I think the impact fee is horrible. The Senate Appropriations Committee just reviewed an extension to the restrictions on drillers. That reduces the impact, the logic goes, and therefore if you reduce the impact, you reduce the impact fee. So it goes from $40,000, I would not be at all surprised, to somewhat less than that. We, I think, have 19 producing wells. Would bring $190,000 into the county on that kind of an impact fee. The value of the gas that has been severed in 19 wells in Clinton County in the first 6 months of this year was $23 million. You may recognize that number. It's the size of the county's general fund. There is more stuff out there than we are getting our share of. And I think those proposals are horrible.
Thank you. Mr. Long.
Well, I don't even know where to start with the governor's proposal, but I will say that I'm glad that he's at least opened his mind to that possibility, because that was not what he campaigned on. It was not for taxing or going after any fees from gas companies to begin with. I think the thing that stands out most to me in the proposal, I think Richard's already pointed out, is that it lessens over time. And you know, that's our resource. They're coming here, they're taking it out of the ground, and when they're done, they're going to leave, and we're going to be left with what's left. We should be making something from it. Should be getting something back. If you look at Alaska, they get actually checks in the mail from oil being taken out of their ground. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm saying is this is far from anything like that. But I am happy that at least he's opened up the conversation by making a proposal.
Coleman.
I agree that it's a long time coming to have this proposal come out from the governor. This is something that our County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania's Natural Gas Task Force has been talking about for the last year and a half. This is something that the Clinton County Natural Gas Task Force has been talking about the last 2 years. This is something that every resident in Clinton County that lives either along Route 664 or along the Renova Road or out further on Route 44 or over on Route 414 or 144 going out of South Renova. There is an impact. My family lives 50 feet off of the Coudersport Pike, and I can tell you that when you're sitting in the house at night watching TV and a line of trucks comes down off the mountain or goes up the mountain to one of the gas wells, it does impact you. You can't even sit from myself to Mr. Johnson away without turning the TV up to hear what's going on. So yes, there is an impact. I've been in favor of an impact fee or a severance tax, whatever you want to call it, from the beginning. Every other state that natural gas is being extracted from, they pay a fee. Granted, I think the first couple proposals that came out were probably a little on the salty side. When you try to compare that to other states, you also have to take into effect that some states have lower business taxes than Pennsylvania does and things of that nature. So definitely in favor of the fee. I just want to make sure that it's something that is not over the top, that is going to force these companies out of Clinton County and out of Pennsylvania, but it's enough to keep the impact on our residents to a check.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder.
Thank you. I'm still researching this. I'm starting to fall in line with Commissioner Bossart's thoughts on this, though. The government has a tendency, as we all know, to make things complicated when they don't need to be complicated. Why is the gas industry getting all this special attention? Any other industry, coal, whatever is extracted from the ground, pays property taxes, real property taxes. Why is the government making this special? It's a complicated formula, decreases in time. Tax it the way we tax everything else and keep it fair. We don't need a complicated system. But regardless how they tax it, whether it's a severance tax, an impact fee, or how they do it, my greatest concern is we're going to get screwed here locally. We always do. Unless I'm a commissioner. I'm going to scream and holler. Go to meetings. The impact fee, if you will, Scott, the money has to come where the impact is. And I'm concerned that all these special things they're throwing out here, we're going to continue to pay for mass transit in Philadelphia, skating rinks in Pittsburgh. Let's keep the money here where we need it. Thank you.
Mr. Smeltz.
The proposal, the question was about the proposal that the governor offered, and of all the things, when you're the last one to answer, you hear all your ideas or pieces of them from the other people. One is that, of course, the governor's looking at it. At one time, he had said he was absolutely opposed to it. At least he's looking at it. When you do the math, you take I think we have 17 or 18 producing wells in Clinton County, you do the math, really, it's not a huge sum of money. One thing I do support in general, I support the concept of implementing some type of an impact fee, and in fairness, the impact fee would offset those actual cash impacts or costs that are being created because of the presence of the gas industry. I agree with Richard Morrison that the gas industry is making huge sums of money. And Richard, thank you. You said $23 million, and I haven't researched that, but I believe you. And that's a lot of to take from the land and not give something back. Now the gas companies do, and we are fortunate in Clinton County because we do have a couple of the better, I'm going to say this, a couple of the gas companies that I have seen have the least number of violations environmentally as some of the other gas companies in the other parts of the state. But I want to see a fee that, I don't like the idea of the county being responsible for getting into the collection of those taxes, but I do support some sort of an impact fee. And there's just so much debate on this in the legislature. There's so many options and combinations of ways to do this that are still being discussed. But I want the fee to cover the cost of the impacts it's having on us. It doesn't need to be a new source of revenue to feed the black hole in Harrisburg for all the programs that might be implemented down there.
Okay. Karen, would you like to ask another question?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Lana. What would you say are the three biggest problems or challenges facing Clinton County over the next several years, other than the North South shale issue?
Mr. Long, we'll start with you this time.
You took away the easiest answer. Because all our focus is on that right now, and because it's so important to the entire county economically and environmentally. So that's where a lot of our focus is going to be. But I think the biggest challenge that we face over the next 4 years and maybe beyond is trying to manage our budget with dwindling resources coming from the state and federal governments. The mandates that they put on local government, and then they cut the funding that they provide so that you can carry out those mandates, is continuing to happen all the time. They don't stop the mandates, continue to pile on mandates. I'm proud that over the last 4 years that we've managed the budget in a time of our country's, one of our country's worst economic times, and we're in a pretty good position. We have a healthy fund balance. We've got a retirement that you hear all the other areas and counties are struggling with is very healthy. That's going to be probably the biggest focus that we have, that along with the change in the prison. The prison has been an area that's provided enough revenue to sustain itself over the years, and that's dwindling as well because we aren't getting as many of the outside prisoners from the federal government that pay very well. We've had to go backwards to state inmates, which are don't pay quite as well, and makes it a little more challenging to manage that budget.
Mr. Coleman.
Karen, your question was three biggest issues, right? I'm not picking on you. I just wanted to make sure I heard it right down at this end of the table. I think that the three biggest issues that we have to face here in Clinton County in the near future, and probably you can stretch this out as far as the next 20 years. First issue is taxes. Second issue is jobs. And the third issue can be a little gray depending on which way you're looking at it, but I think one of the major issues that we're going to be facing here is a complete change in demographics of what we have here in Clinton County, and I'll get to that in a second. The first thing is about the taxes. As Joel said, the last 4 years have been 4 of the roughest years that our country has been through since the Great Depression. If you look at other counties around us, if you look at other taxing bodies within Clinton County and outside of Clinton County, everybody's been having a tough time. You see some of these counties and some of these townships that on a yearly basis they're raising taxes by 1, 2, 3, 6 mils. We made it through the last 4 years with a 4/10 of a mil, 4/10 of 1 mil tax increase. Something I was very proud of, that we were able to keep producing the product that we do in county government and not asking the public to carry an additional load. The second thing is jobs. Everybody knows that jobs are an important part of the local economy and what's going on here. There was some news that came out on the street over the last few days that First Quality was going through a big layoff. They have laid some people off, but it's an attempt to streamline some of their processes. They're still employing about 1,450 people in Clinton County, so I don't want anybody running out of here thinking that the world's going to end because First Quality had to lay off a few people. To the change in demographics, with the new industries that we have coming into Clinton County right now, obviously there is a change in demographics, the type of people, the areas that people come from to, can I finish my thought real quick? The people that are coming in here. Obviously, we are a small rural county, so we're used to a certain type of issue, certain type of person being here. And when you have people coming in from Texas and Canada and Oklahoma and Montana and Wyoming and Florida and wherever else they're coming in from, obviously that is going to be an issue for those of us who live here to be able to open our arms and accept those people here to become Clinton County residents.
Thank you. Mr. Snyder?
I do think that the first issue that we need to talk to is about jobs. One thing I find interesting, and it was just in the paper here recently when it says Baker Hughes is coming in and told you how many hundreds of jobs are going to be available. The first question that goes through my mind is, when these businesses are attracted, let's just say there's 250 jobs. How many of those are going to be local employment opportunities, and how many are they bringing with them? Now, the gas industry has created some new positions in this area, but a lot of the people travel with them. We need to attract industry, and when we're talking industry coming into the area, the question needs to be asked, okay, you're going to have 300 jobs, but how many of our people are going to fill those slots? And if there are businesses coming in here, and I'm not saying that that's the case with Baker Hughes, don't take me there, but what I'm saying is we need to attract businesses, industry that's going to hire local people. Taxes, that's always an issue. Boy, that time went fast. I'll just mention the last thing. Okay, very quickly. Society, social issues. Believe it or not, look around. Starting to see some homeless people. That's a concern. I know we have some programs up and coming. Read the paper. A riot. Downtown Lock Haven, and we have a riot early hours of the morning. Kind of scary. It's not the type of community that we had a few years ago when you could go out for a walk at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning and you didn't have to worry about anything. We need to start looking at those things, and I know here's a word that a lot of people want to shy away from and ignore. We have a drug problem in this community. Whether you want to hear it, whether you want to acknowledge it, but we better soon start looking at it and acknowledging it, because it's here. And we need to do something about it. Thank you, Scott.
Mr. Smeltz.
Scott, when you put your hand up, I leave here 1 minute. Okay. That's fine. Well, of course, we've heard a number of ideas at this point, and to narrow it down to 3, but I'll try it. These are 3 that concern me, and it's jobs, but it's from a different viewpoint. We have been saved, if you will, as Adam, I believe, mentioned, because of the Marcellus industry. We are not feeling the effects of the nationwide downturn in joblessness, and that's good. But I see it as a temporary situation, only to the degree that I'd like to see us continue to work towards attracting other industries and businesses to the area. And I said it earlier, I believe, that are non-Marcellus gas related. I don't want to see it, and I don't say that we are abandoning that. We want to continue to search out for other. You remember the days of the Piper aircraft and the days of Hammermill, and then the impacts of what happens when those businesses withdraw from your community and you're left with emptiness. And so we need to look in that area. I believe housing is something that we need to consider. I believe it's related a little bit to the influx of different demographics of people coming. And you don't see it today. I asked some realtors, and they don't see it today. But I do see that we need to be able to provide. I want the people who work for Baker Hughes, there's 250. I want them to live in Clinton County, not just work here and commute to State College. And I'm going to throw this out. I don't have much time to speak to it, but I also like us to continue to emphasize our tourism elements of Clinton County. It's an area that also, I believe, is taking a back seat because of the gas drilling. And we have to agree as a community, if we still believe tourism is important to our county. Some people in the county might not think it is anymore. I happen to believe that it is, and I'd like to work on that if you let me become your commissioner.
Thank you. Mr. Morris.
We've talked about a lot of things here, and you will probably notice that none of them are directly within the gift of the county commissioners to deliver. But I think it is very important that as county commissioners we are aware of these wider developments in our society. There is good chance that over the years we will see less money come from the state and federal government. We have the opportunity, if we can sell out the whole of the business park and attract new industry into this area, to widen the tax base in a way that will hopefully offset part of that. I do see that if we attract more people into the area to work, that sooner or later we are going to have a problem with our housing stock. And we do need to be alive to the opportunity to foster development in that area. I think there's another issue that that comes out of Marcellus and the attraction of new business and a whole range of other things. And as the relationship between the county government and local municipal governments, I think that the burdens that are starting to be placed on the shoulders of local municipalities are greater than they are able to bear. And I think we had to take a look at the whole way in which we do local government in the county. It would be nice to have local people do local jobs. The jobs are likely to be more technical. We have to step up the quality of the education that we provide to our young people to make them able to step up to these jobs. And last thing, and I kind of feel passionately about this, so even if I go over time, I'm going to say it. I spend a lot of time going into the garden building at all times of day, and I see people moving into the building to go to probation and to children and youth. And those services do an excellent job in providing the services they're supposed to. But nobody seems to be asking the question, why do we have all these people coming into this building for that reason? And that's something I think that as leaders of the community, rather than necessarily as local government gurus, we need to start asking those questions.
Thank you. Mr. Lopez?
My next question would be, do you favor the current freestyle dialogue at the county commissioner meetings involving members of the public, or would you prefer something along the lines of how the Keystone Central School Board conducts its meetings, a sign-in process and a limit on the length of presentations from the public?
Mr. Coleman, you're first.
Well, seeing that sorry, Richard, this might hurt a little bit. The last 3 years that I've been the chairman of the Board of Commissioners running the meetings, and even before that, it's been tradition that we go through the agenda for our meeting, and then we have a public comment period at the end. I don't think, with the exception of maybe a few topics here and there for a few certain people, that we should limit what the public wants to say. You're welcome, Richard. That being said, some of our meetings can get a little lengthy because we allow that public comment period at the end of the meeting. But what good is government if you can't have public comment involved in it?
Thank you. Mr. Snyder?
Thank you. There's a work session and there's a voting session. During the work session, I absolutely believe that it's less formal. Come, let's talk about the issues. Voting sessions, get down to the business. Someone wants to ask a question, certainly. Give them all the time they want. I've been attending some commissioners' meetings, and there's sometimes some discussion that has nothing to do with what's your motion on the floor. I believe in the formality of a voting session, and that's certainly how I would want them run. There is something that occurs right now, though, the way I see it with the current board, and that is the questions are all directed to the chairman. I'm going to tell you, if I'm a county commissioner, I don't care if I'm the chairman or not. If you elect me, I'm going to have the same opportunity to talk to you at that voting session as anyone else. I'm not going to ask someone's permission to talk to you or ask a question. I'm there to represent you, to field your questions and answer them. And that can be done. 3 people, 3 elected offices, we're all there for the same purpose, and that is to answer your questions and help you.
Thank you. Mr. Smeltz?
For the most part, the functions, the way they're running the meetings right now is okay, but can we do better? I do wish that we would encourage and that we would, I wouldn't mind seeing more public participation in the work sessions. I would agree that the 2-session concept is a good idea, where you have a meeting where you hash out a lot of details, you get ideas, where you listen to, have dialogue back and forth. I think that's an excellent idea. Expeditiously, you're running through the agenda and approving your motions at At the more formal meeting, though, sometimes tends to be just that. It's just going through the motions. So you do need to allow a period of time for questions and answers at that session as well. One idea that I've been thinking about, and I'm going to propose this now, and would propose it to my Board of Commissioners, and that would be the concept of they have some ideas on how to involve the rest of the county or the four corners of the county. I'd be interested in looking into town hall meetings where the commissioners would spend some time visiting communities and listening to ideas during the evening. The advantage to the formal meetings at the commissioners or in the Gardner building is that you have access to all the data and the staff that you need in order to address your problems. So when you go out in the outlying areas, you have to drag everybody with you. You don't want to do that. So another mechanism might be to go out and have some town hall meetings in the community and then take those ideas back into the commissioner's office. And I'm not saying, it's something I would like to look into. I would discuss it with the fellow commissioners and consider implementing that idea.
Mr. Morris?
2 minutes, Richard.
Any self-promoting egomaniac would be welcome at any commissioners' meeting that I was chairing. No, because I would be in the chair. Pay attention, John. I think it is important that when you are elected to office, you make yourself available to the people who have elected you. Commissioners' meetings at Dollars Ditchwater, there's a couple of resolutions on something or other, and you designate next Thursday Lame Goat Day, and you hire somebody and you're done. That's a mockery of what local government should be, unless you open those doors and invite people to talk to whatever it is they want to talk to about that's even remotely relevant to your responsibilities as a representative of those people. And I've got to tell you, I know that the school board has very long and detailed agendas, but if the Board of Commissioners ever adopts the practice of moving the agenda, I will be very, very cross. It is absolutely essential that we make ourselves available. Whether somebody comes along who has something genuine to say, somebody who's just tedious, somebody who's so ticked off they don't know where else to go, you are their representative and you will listen to them. Or at least I will.
I think the structure itself is fine if it's followed. I mean, having a work session where you have more detailed conversation, less structure around it is very good. As a commissioner, I do get frustrated at times whenever there should be discussion on the issue, but as Mr. Snyder pointed out, many times the discussion goes away from the issue itself. And we do have public comment period for those who come with something that they want to discuss that doesn't have to do with the agenda. So I would like to see the structure be a little bit tighter than what we've done, but I think the structure itself is okay.
Okay. Dr. Berard, do you have a second question?
I do. I'm going to alter it slightly. Mr. Snyder, in answering the question about three problems, mentioned social issues, and I had a question prepared about drug abuse because it does get coverage in the papers. And I'll expand that to say, choose a social issue such as drug abuse or housing, is another one that was mentioned. What can you do as a county commissioner to help bring out solutions to that problem? I had drug abuse in mind, but housing is another one that doesn't get as much media attention perhaps, but it is one that we're also seeing here and there.
Mr. Snyder, we'll start with you.
Thank you. First thing I think that we need to do is admit that we have a problem. And I haven't seen that in this county. It's my opinion, we have a problem. So the first thing you have to do is admit you have the problem, and then you start addressing that. Do I have all the answers of how to combat drugs in this area? No, but I'm going to know where to start. I've been working on it. Other school board members, we have been working on it as far as to the schools. But it's a larger problem than what the school could do. I'm a true believer in most social problems, in my opinion, can be solved in the household. When you raise your kids, you're the parents, you're the first line of defense. And we need to get more people with more expertise than I have in the county to start having public forums. We need hotlines for kids to be able to call, or not just kids have drug problems, but anyone that has a problem be able to call. We need places for them to go, to talk to people. We just need to first identify the problem and start putting a program together to see if we can't make a difference. Thank you.
Mr. Smeltz?
I'll try to do two of those, and real quick on the first one, in agreement with Mr. Snyder to the degree that I happen to believe that there is more of a drug problem than the general public might be aware of in Clinton County. And I also agree that, and I know the school district is trying their best, but I also agree that we need to recognize that it is a problem and head it off. I've spoken with law enforcement officials, and I know that they know that this problem exists. I see it in different communities, and it concerns me, and I believe that drug task force, and it's an area that would fall into the other category of enforcement, perhaps through the district attorney's office. From a home perspective, there's no question about it. Jeff, we can't raise children for them, but I believe a stable home life is critical to preventing these kinds of things. Quickly on housing, I think housing, I mentioned it, since I brought it up, I might as well follow up on it. And that is that I believe that housing in the future could be a problem for us. Ample housing of the proper type. I don't have the answers to that. That's not necessarily, and I believe Richard commented, maybe it's not even the county commissioner's job. But I believe government would have a responsibility, or the county commissioners, in pulling together, as we did with, say, the gas task force, a similar housing task force to involve realtors and builders in the area, and make sure that we can amply address. I like to look to the future. I'm one who likes to plan ahead and anticipate what we need, so that when those days come to us, what types of housing. And there's some people in this room, and there's some entrepreneurs I know who are looking into that. They're doing it because they know they can provide a need. And so as a commissioner, I would want to encourage that process so that we have, and you build the tax base. When you provide housing, people live here and they want to work here and live here, it helps to build your tax base. And it helps to solve other problems when you solve that problem. So that's an area that I think I would want to look at.
Mr. Morris?
Just quickly before I address your question, just to amplify my slightly light-hearted response to the previous question. Ask yourselves this: how do you know people are telling you the truth if you don't probe them? And how do you know they're not telling you don't from time to time make them angry? I honestly do not know how the people in children and youth do their job. I couldn't do it. And therefore I ask myself the question, why do they have to? So if there is an issue that we need to address, it is why we still allow children to have children. Why we still allow those children to have their babies carted off from the birth crib to a drug unit because they're already addicted. there is no criticism of the people who do this work. They are so busy doing it that they don't have the time to ask themselves those questions. It behoves us who see them doing it to ask it for them. That would be my issue.
Mr. Long.
Well, I guess I would start by saying that I think that several of us have admitted there's a drug problem here. I started attending meetings over 8 years ago after the big heroin bust downtown. There is a group called Advocates for Drug Free Tomorrow, and we hold meetings monthly. And we do block parties to try to reach out to at-risk areas. They just put on their annual fall festival where they try to get, and they provide information on these topics and so on. And no offense to any of the other candidates here, but I haven't seen any one of them at any of those meetings. As far as the other social issues with children and youth, being a product of children and youth, I absolutely agree with Richard. But these are social problems because it's all society. When I first ran for this office 8 years ago, I had a lady come up to me and look me in the eye and she said, "What are you going to do about the drug problem?" And I looked her straight back in the eye and said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I said, "There's lots of things we can do as government, but government can't fix everything. We can put more police out there. We can get more children and youth workers. We can put more probation officers. There's only so many of those per kid or per criminal. As far as the kids, there's at least one parent out there for every kid. And I don't know about the rest of you, but when I was a kid, I had a curfew. And if I wasn't in by that time, my parents knew where I was. They came out and found me. And of course, I was punished and I wasn't allowed to go out again. It takes everyone. The government can't fix those problems alone. We can do a lot of things, but it's going to take all of us to fix those kinds of problems. And if you re-elect me, I'm looking for you to help us.
Real quick, I just want to go back to something. I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea. If you come to a commissioners meeting, typically the question is directed at the chairman, whether that's me or whether that's somebody else in the next 4 years, but that's just usually typical protocol. As Commissioner Bossert will tell you, and as Commissioner Long will tell you, the three of us have an equal voice, and whoever decides to speak up first and answer the question, that's how it's done. Usually it's Tom because he's kicking one of us under the table so he can talk, because everybody knows how much he likes to talk. Back to the question at hand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. How does the county help get a solution on social issues? There's been studies over the last few years that have linked economic status, economic situation to social issues. If the economy's bad, typically your police force is going to have more DUIs. You're going to have more gas drive-offs at the A+. You're going to have more crime in general. So I think one of the key underlying facts to helping to start to correct the social issues is we need to promote what we have to promote to keep our economy in this area at a higher level. The second thing is education. As Richard said, as Joel said, as anybody else can see when you go into the garden building, there is a lot of young children pushing baby carriages in. It all starts with education. The people need to know that there's people that are willing to reach out to them to help them. They can't continually feel like they're on their own. We need to be there to help provide that little bit of outreach to help those people out. And then once we get them in, then we can start to educate them on what the norms are, on how to prevent these situations from happening. And it's simply an education issue. It starts at the home level. It goes through the school district, and then unfortunately, if they haven't learned by then it comes to us.
From a reader, and maybe the fellows can bring me some of the ones from the audience. First question: would you, as an elected commissioner, vote for a roundtable of business and working people from our county to help make important decisions and help keep spending and taxes down? This group would receive no pay. Let's start down with Jeff Snyder.
I thought about that. I don't know if it would be a roundtable type of forum, but what I have thought about is asking some, what I believe, key people in the community to serve on an advisory board. And first I'd have to talk with the other commissioners, see if they would be in favor of that. But I think that's something that we have a lot of people in this county who could help advise the commissioners. They do have a lot of meetings. They have to be a lot of places at the same time sometimes. But I think it's very important to have input from the community. I see Bobby McGuire out here. You read the paper. I don't know how Bobby gets it. Do you have a twin, Bobby? I mean, he seems to be everywhere. Pick up the paper. He's in your nose. Next thing he sees down in Harrisburg. I don't know how he does it, but Bobby's the type of person that you need advising county government. He's everywhere. He knows what's going on. He has his finger on the pulse. Danny Harder's another one. Danny has a lot of knowledge about the Clinton County. So I would very much be interested in talking to a few, what I would see as key people in the county, see if they'd be interested in setting up an advisory board to just do that, advise the Commissioner's office. Thanks.
Yeah, the short answer to that is, yeah, that was your question, Lana. Yes, I think that's an excellent idea. I believe that public-private partnerships are probably more the way of solutions to some of our problems than anything. I'll use the Marcellus Shale Gas Task Force as an example where we have private enterprise coming in at that meeting, and Chairman Coleman takes care of that, and they come in there, and that's where they share ideas. I mentioned earlier that my concern is potential, looking ahead to the potential of housing shortages. The commissioners will not resolve that problem. You would do that in coordination with private enterprise and bring the proper plan. And I don't see any reason why county commissioners could, in line maybe with Jeff saying, couldn't pull together any number of task force that we would be required to resolve any issues in our community. And there's a lot of wise people. I see them in this room. You mentioned some names, Jeff, who have the ability, and I absolutely would support that to help us address issues, whatever they may be. When you need a business view on something, I want to talk to the business people. If I have an issue with an education, we talked about the social ills of our community, faith-based organizations, talking to our churches. Dr. Benjamin Lynn is spearheading the efforts on I want to say the Horizon House, I always forget the name of it. These are the kinds of things that make a community strong. Maybe that way we can help address some of the social ills as well.
Mr. Morris?
I guess one of the first things that the next Board of Commissioners will do is sit down and divvy up the 34 committees on which they already sit among themselves. I would hope that you would elect commissioners who have the common sense, if they don't know something, to ask somebody who does in the process of analysing the problems that are before them. I am very, very much in favour of that. I'm very, very much in favour of business leaders, social leaders in our community coming to the meetings that the commissioners have already run. What I'm not in favour of is another set of minutes that we have to review, another set of agendas that we have to argue over. We need alert commissioners who are not too proud to recognise when there are things that they do not know. I'm not in favour of being constrained to go to the 35th talking shop.
Well, yes, let's expand the bureaucracy. We already access people that we know and we trust all the time. I don't see any reason why we need to put together some advisory council that's going to tell us how to do the job. Specific situations, I'm putting together a Clinton County Technology Council to address bringing more technology here to help the gas industry, to help education. I'm working with KCNet and IMIX to bring 4G service here, be here before it's to some larger areas. Do I have all the ability to do that on my own? No. So I'm pulling in key people to help with that project. Do we need to put together a universal advisory council? No. To me, that sounds like a backdoor way of doing home rule. But so no, I would not be in favor.
As it is right now, we already have a group of advisors that can call us and can talk to us at any time, and that's the approximately 39,000 people that live here in Clinton County. Those are the people that the 3 elected commissioners are responsible to, and that is a part of the job that I've taken very seriously over the last 4 years. If somebody calls me with an issue that somebody's neighbor in Renova is cutting trees down that they shouldn't be cutting down. True, that issue might not be important to somebody in Rocktown, but the way that I've viewed this job is I make that an important issue to me. So we do already, in a sense, have an advisory board, as in the entire residency of Clinton County. When the people vote for the 3 commissioners, they are instilling in them their trust to make the right decisions. So you have to allow the electoral process to continue and allow those 3 gentlemen or ladies, if the opportunity ever arises, that those 3 people make the decisions. And if they need to ask questions, if they don't know what they're doing, if they don't know this specific topic, you need to trust in them that they are going to go out and they're going to find the person that knows and find out the answers. I know personally myself over the last 4 years, I've relied heavily on Commissioner Bossert for his 87,000 years of experience being on this earth, Commissioner Long for his years serving on City Council, and I've even gone to some of our former county commissioners, Commissioner Yost, Commissioner Valello, and Commissioner Kyle, to try to pull some ideas from them as to what we have going on now, how we handle it, and how I can kind of roll that into what I want to see done.
The costs of running county government continue to rise. There's a loss of revenue at the Clinton County Prison, and more cuts of state-mandated program dollars are possible. What do you propose to do, rather than raise taxes, to make up the shortfall in revenue? Mr. Smeltz, we'll start with you this time.
Shortfall in revenue. Of course, we talked earlier about the Marcellus Shale issue, and I do not. Again, I said it. If you recall, I said I do not favor the state passing taxes just for the sake of passing taxes so they can fill the black hole. I do not know what will become of all of that, the outcome of that effort. But if we are seeing an increase in the cost of operating local governments because of that impact of the Marcellus tax, then hopefully, until the dust settles, something can come that will offset those costs. As those costs are offset, it helps alleviate the cries from the local municipalities for the county government to provide more and more help. I do not want to see any need to raise property taxes. That's always a last resort to do that. The commissioners have gone through an effort to using a scalpel to try to cut costs within county government. What I would like to see is efficiencies. And I can't say how to do this until you get inside and meet with the various department heads. But in working in state government a few years ago, we had to, prior to, quite frankly, a gas tax increase, we were tasked with responsibility to cut our operating costs. Governor Corbett just recently challenged the school districts in the state system of higher education in a way that perhaps I'm not sure I agreed with, but in the end, that which was a 50% cut in funding was reduced considerably in the end. And the school systems found ways to do that. What I want to do is as a commissioner, is look at ways internally go through department by department, ways in which we can streamline operations and reduce operating costs. And there's ways you can do that you don't realize until you put the right team together and approach it with the right attitude. And we did that. We did that where I worked before, and I'm sure we can do that within the county government operations.
Mr. Morris?
I don't necessarily accept the premise of the question that funding goes down and costs go up. This year, I think, is the 6th year that I've sat through the budget sessions. I have the working papers of the previous 5 years stuffed all over my study, and things don't really change that much. There are a couple of things, however, that I think do require very close attention. One is that our payroll goes up 5% every year for no other reason than it goes up 5% every year. We do need to start to look at ways in which we can negotiate greater efficiencies for that increase in the wage bill. And I think Pete has the germ of a good idea that I think we do need in future years to adopt a zero-based budget. Instead of waiting till October and then deciding how many pencils we use this year and how many pencils we need next year, could you make do with 2 less? Let's start earlier in the year and ask the fundamental question, why do we need pencils? We have to sit down, I think, with all the operating departments and say, question the premise, the assumptions on which they work. Why do you do your business this way? And it may well be that as a result of that discipline, we find there aren't a lot of things that we can do differently. But if we don't ask the question, we'll never know the answer. And therefore, I think one of the first things that the next Board of Commissioners has to do is to adopt a more rigorous approach to how we do the budget. Oh, do I have time left? I see the balance of my time to Mr. Long.
Well, let's be clear. There is no candidate up here that's going to sit here and tell you that they want to raise taxes, because that's just political death. We do look for efficiencies. We do look for efficiencies and have made some great strides over the last few years. And trimming costs, we did have to raise some revenue because that's a reality. We eliminated one of the higher paid jobs at the prison and a deputy warden. We let other people go. And you're never happy about, because that's people's jobs. We talk about jobs and we let somebody go, that's somebody's job as well. So it's not an easy decision to make. You have to weigh a lot of things out when you make those decisions. We have put off different things. But as we found, at least a board ago, when you let everything go, and it wasn't that board's fault, but when you let everything go, sooner or later, it comes due. And that's what leads to a 36% tax increase that happened at that time. And I did a study when I was still sitting on city council, because everybody says, taxes just keep going up and up and up. And I wanted to know, are taxes really going up that much? Are we taking more of a family's take-home pay than we were in 1970? You know what I found? I found the city of Lock Haven was taking 2% more than they were in 1970. And it was only 2% more because the 1972 flood caused people to move out, so some of the salaries moved out of the town. So they were actually taking less in taxes in 1999 than they were in 1970. We just don't look at it that way. We never can see it. Dr. Wise, I'm not going to argue with you because I know the facts and I've done the numbers. So that's what I have for you. And yes, I will continue to look for efficiencies in government.
The first time that I ran for the office of county commissioner 8 years ago, one of the things that I said then is we need to continue to look for different avenues of where we're getting our funding streams from. Obviously, that is part of the job of county commissioner. That's something that we have worked very hard for over the last 4 years. Whether it's trying to find additional funding through state programs to help fund this children and youth position or this juvenile probation position, that's what we do. If it means that we hold off on hiring an extra person for the assessment department for over a year to help recoup some of the costs that we've already spent there, then so be it. But the bottom line is, every once in a while, there are one of those years where it's unavoidable. If you look at your grocery bill this year compared to what it was last year at this time, if you buy the same 10 items, both shopping trips, I can guarantee you that this year's bill is going to be more than last year's bill. Look at the cost of gasoline for your vehicle. It goes up constantly. I can remember the summer that I got my driver's license, I think I paid 74 cents for a gallon of gas. 74 cents. Now you're paying $3.49, $3.59. The cost of everything goes up. So inevitably, somebody has to pay for it. We all have to share the load. I don't think that any of us in this room or any of us up at this table want to have to get to a point where we say, well, I'm sorry, we only have enough funding in our children and youth budget to help 20 children this month, and 3/4 of the way through the month, child number 21 comes through the door, and we sit there, I'm sorry, we can't help you. You're going to have to go back to the home where you're living, that you're being abused, and you're not being raised in a sound way. We can't do that. We cannot turn our cheek to something like that. So there are things that come up that we have to continue to spend money on and provide those services for people.
Mr. Snyder.
I mentioned about being chairman of the Finance Committee for Keystone Central. We start that process earlier every year, and I always start the same way every year, telling the board administration that my goal is to have a no tax increase. And Mr. Long is correct. No one likes raising taxes. I ask myself this: why do I live in Clinton County? Why do you all live in Clinton County? Maybe various reasons, but this county has so much to offer. We have rivers, we have streams, we have hunting opportunities, fishing opportunities, camping opportunities, hiking opportunities. We have a lot here, and I'm going to go with something that Pete said earlier. Our tourism agency does a great job. Instead of just always dwelling on cuts and not having to raise taxes, I'm going to go the other end. Let's get a Clinton County Commissioner who is going to work with all the agencies, the infrastructure that's already in place. Instead of raising taxes, let's get more businesses in here, get more people to live here, build homes, buy property, so that the burden is spread out more. We are one of the best kept secrets, I think, in the state of Pennsylvania. Let's take what we have, promote ourselves. We're here for a reason. Let's let other people know how great we have it here in Clinton County. Spread out the burden and get more people here to spread that burden out. I'm going to go from that angle. Thank you.
One more question from our readers or our audience. Can you or will you, if elected, direct the partnership to be more proactive to push our county? This time we'll start with Mr. Morris.
I really hate these buzzwords. One of the things that struck me at the time of the 36% tax increase was how easy it is to light a fire under people by saying part-time commissioners run the county like a business. You never define these terms. All you do is you try and tweak an emotional chord. And I think proactive is one of those words. We don't have people in the Economic Partnership who sit and twiddle their thumbs. We don't have people in the Tourist Promotion Agency who sit and twiddle their thumbs. Filling the business park is not an easy thing to do. And I don't think you're going to get more people coming to look at the Lamar Business Park if you apply more shoe leather to the sitting area of the people who work extraordinarily hard in the Economic Partnership. do I believe that commissioners have a role in inspiring them to put forth yet more effort? Yeah, of course we do. But I'm not in the business of looking for people to blame, and I'm not in the business of twanging a few buzzwords to garner votes. The county has its own internal operating boards. It has the economic partnership, which is not strictly, it is an independent entity. You work with those people, you inspire those people, you encourage them to greater efforts, because that's part of what management is. And I don't want to single out the economic partnership and say to be more proactive implies they're not doing what they should be doing. It's again, it's one of those questions that I do not accept the premise.
Well, as far as attracting business, the county commissioners have a representative on the operating board of the economic partnership, so that we have a voice there. The only other leverage we have is that we give them hotel tax money. We don't actually give them money towards helping to bring business in. There's no general fund dollars that go to the economic partnership any longer. The partnership is made up of the type of people that we were just suggested to put together an advisory board for. Business people, people that know how to start things, entrepreneurs and so on. And they are very aggressive at what they do. It's having something that those businesses want. And currently we happen to be in that situation with Marcellus Shale, and fortunately that's what has led to Baker Hughes. The only thing that we really could do, or the prior board in fact, was to create the atmosphere for that to happen, getting the infrastructure out in that location. Helping the partnership to acquire land and put together the packages to sell to people. And I think the past board and this board and boards prior to that have done those things. We take an active role in trying to help, talk to people when they come here. But again, it's the people that have the expertise with the partnership that have that role. And I think they do a fine job with it.
Excuse me. Over the last 4 years, I've had the privilege of being the Clinton County Commissioner's representative to the Economic Partnership Operating Board. And I can say from firsthand experience, the members of the Operating Board, the staff at the Economic Partnership Office, the members of the Tourism Board have all been very proactive. I can remember a couple 3-hour car drives that I was in with Mike Flanagan, the CEO at the partnership, going down to Baltimore to try to convince a company, I believe the name was Wind River Holdings, that was the new parent company of Haven Homes, and trying to, A, convince them not to close operations here in Clinton County, and B, to build another facility out at our business park. To me, that's very proactive. If you're willing to go for a 3-hour car ride to have a 15-minute conversation with a gentleman to try to keep a business here, that's very proactive. As Joel mentioned, we are right in the middle of the Marcellus shale industry. So the focus has shifted to try to sell that land out there to those interested individuals that are here now looking for space because they are dealing with the Marcellus shale industry. We've all been talking about Baker Hughes off and on tonight. The issue with the jobs that came up with them, the 250 to 300 jobs that they are talking about. Excuse me, there was a hair on the microphone and I know it wasn't mine. The 250 jobs that we are talking about, approximately 75 of those are going to be office jobs, meaning jobs that people locally here are going to have. Obviously, they're going to bring in some people from outside the area that know what they're doing with that because it's a very specialized industry. But their plan is to have as few of those people as possible. So, being proactive, that's what the partnership is doing already. They are doing a very good job at it, and I know in some of our recent meetings, we've talked so much about other industries coming in because of Baker Hughes looking at the property, and everybody's already talking about where's the next business park going to be. So, very proactive already.
Mr. Snyder?
Thank you, Lynn. I'm going to ask you to repeat the question. There's been some
Okay.
philosophical answers and stuff. I kind of forget what the original question was.
Can you or will you, if elected, direct the partnership to be more proactive to push our county?
Yes.
Thank you.
Right. Now what am I going to do all this time? Later on, I ask you how. I think there's a lot of agreement here at the table, and that's okay, I suppose, in that the premise of the question, I believe Richard alluded to that, was maybe quite perhaps incorrect. And I know there are people out there who see what they see from the outside, and they're not close enough to the workings of the economic partnership to understand what they do. And in all fairness, whoever asked that question, and perhaps they're looking for a job and they can't find one. I don't know. Although jobs are good in our area compared to other areas. The economic partnership, from my perspective, does do a good job. And the job that they, as far as helping them, marketing Clinton County, I think Jeff alluded to it earlier. We have a lot to offer. I think what we need to do is simply identify those, and I think they do this, as they go about, whether they're traveling, as Adam mentioned, traveling to various places. We have so much to offer, and to market the other aspects of living in Clinton County as far as the quality of life that we can offer. Of course, as commissioners and everyone else, we need to sustain that quality of life, make sure we have housing, and make sure we have good schools to bring people here. And I think those things are sort of on the fringe part of when I used to travel around Pennsylvania, the first thing I used to do is buy a newspaper. You can tell a lot about a community by reading the newspaper for 2 or 3 days. But they're doing a good job. In my viewpoint, what I might do differently is spend more time with them, not just attending a meeting from time to time, but walk across the street from time to time and meet with Mike Flanagan and sit and talk with them more frequently about, and that way, if nothing else, just get a handle on what's going on and encourage them to continue to work their efforts.
Thank you. Finally, let's allow our candidates to ask questions of each other. We will naturally allow back and forth dialogue, and knowing our candidates will be respectful of each other. Let's start at the right side of the table this time. Mr. Coleman, do you have a question you'd like to ask one or more of the candidates seated at the table with you?
I guess my first question, and this is not to be taken negatively or anything like that, I would ask Mr. Snyder to expound upon his yes answer on making the economic partnership be more proactive. What do you think else needs to be done for those people to be considered proactive in promoting Clinton County?
Well, I think they are being proactive. I think where the problem comes is that they need commissioners. I'm going to be very direct here. It was you, Adam, who broke the story on the Baker Hughes way before they were ready to have it be broken. You put the county in a position that Baker Hughes was being sought by Lycoming County. You spelled it right out for an opportunity for Lycoming County to steal them away from us. You told them how many acres, how much they were going to pay per acre. You need to work hand in hand with them and be a part of the process. The reason I want to make a point, and I'm glad I get the opportunity, I'm on the clock with this. Great.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. As a yes answer, 4 years ago you had a forum like this. I'd like to see if there's anybody in here who remembers one question or one answer that was asked 4 years ago. My point is this. This is not what I like to do, and I'm not that good at it. But I'm good at working hard and getting the job done. And I'm dedicated, and I plan on working with the 34 authorities and boards. Am I going to be able to attend all of their meetings? No, but I'm going to have the communication from county employees when there's an issue with the Fire Chiefs Association. I need to be at that meeting. There's an issue, a hot issue at the Conservation District Board. I'm going to be at that meeting whether I'm the one appointed to work with that board or authority or not. It's not that I don't think that this type of forum is important, but what is important for me is to get elected, to show you people. I don't like Mr. Morris indicating that I'm using buzzwords. I don't use buzzwords. I'm going to be a full-time commissioner, people. I've done it my whole life. I put 9.5 to 12 hours in a day in my business. I have a minimum of 6 meetings a month with the school district. In 20 years on the school board, I have missed 2 meetings because I was ill. I'm going to show this county, and I hope I get the opportunity, what a dedicated person working for you can accomplish. Hope some of you remember the questions that were asked here tonight. I wrote them down. Given the opportunity to be here in 4 years, I'm going to suggest what some of these questions were and bring them up to you. But what I'm going to do is tell you the accomplishments that the Board of Commissioners accomplished in that 4-year term. Because that's how you get something done. You put the time in, you make the commitment. That's what I'm going to do. Thank you.
Just a quick response to that. Since I am the board representative to the Economic Partnership Operating Board, I do work hand in hand with them. And to be quite honest with you, yes, there was a little bit of confusion about how we should get the information out about Baker Hughes and them coming here. But when the Vice President of Baker Hughes' Worldwide Operations called Mike Flanagan or sent Mike an email and said that they were very happy about the way the news came out because it made it seem like Clinton County was opening their arms and welcoming this company in. That says something.
If anybody's interested, ask Mike Flanagan if that's his opinion. In the article, if you recall, Adam, when Mike Flanagan was asked, he said no comment.
And before Mike got a chance to get an email out to everybody telling people not to talk about it, I had already received phone calls from Mr. Lopez and Mr. Johnson from the Express. So had I seen the email before I got any phone calls, that would have been the same case with me. But I didn't receive the email in time. And I'm sorry, I was excited for Clinton County because we've got a huge job prospect coming.
Mr. Long, do you have a question?
I was going to ask Adam for his hairbrush, but I guess I don't so much have a question for the other candidates. There's a couple things, though, that was said during this I'd like addressed if I can. It was brought up at one point about the financial manager and, them being from Harrisburg and not from here. I guess the question I would ask is, what financial manager in Clinton County has experience with managing county budgets and, in fact, has former chief clerks on their staff? You pick the most qualified financial manager you can for your type of business. And I am all in favor of giving Clinton County business where it can be done. But you also have to do the best service for the Clinton County citizens. So, in defense of who we use, this company has experience and has members that have served in county government at the highest levels, i.e. the highest appointed levels anyways, and also advise us at times on certain things that they understand about the county code that we may not have question on. So I feel very comfortable with who we have as the financial manager. That doesn't change the fact that I am trying to wean us off of that independence as much as it has been.
Would any other candidates like to comment on Joel's remarks? Okay. Mr. Morris, would you have a question for the candidate?
Well, while we're on the subject of the financial manager, I wouldn't wean him away from this job. I thank them for their past service. Jeff, if we wanted to do this financial thing within the county, and therefore we put out a request for proposals, how many responses do you think we would get?
Well, Richard, that's an interesting question. I guess since it's my opinion, I'm going to guess that there's a couple hundred people in Clinton County that might have some working relationship with finances. You might get 20 or 25 that would have some interest, bring them in, interview them, bring it down to a few. And I'd have to say from Joel's response that he thinks that, you know, county government is a different beast to manage than any other form of government. And I guess that's where I'm going to disagree. You do your job, and if you need help, I don't have a problem asking for help. But I don't see where investments are any different, that insurances are any different than any other business. And once I get involved in county government, if I'm wrong about that, I'll come back and tell you, hey people, I had no idea what I was talking about. But I can't see where there's that much difference between managing county government than any other business or industry. There just aren't that many differences as far as the things that I'm mentioning. Now, if there's other areas, you know, Julie, you want to expand on there, go ahead.
I would like to, thank you. Yeah, it is different. See, we do all the things that private business doesn't want to do. We can't make money at it. If it could be made money at, private business will want to take it away from us. Okay? This is about people who have experience dealing with government grants and how those all operate. It has to do with experience on how that goes through our budget and makes sense. And you know that from dealing with grants with the school district. Okay? And again, the law dictates how we go about things. Private industry does things completely different from us because they can. We have to follow certain rules on how we go about it. And I feel comfortable with this firm because they have that experience. I'm not saying that you know, that I disagree with, you know, bringing in local contractors, what have you, to do business with the county. I agree wherever that's possible. In fact, I just made the motion as far as managing the retirement at Susqueview that we work with someone locally who we hadn't been working with before. We're not talking about managing the retirement. We're talking about going through and analyzing our budget based on the laws and stuff that we have to abide by. And I'm not saying no one here is capable of that. I'm saying I'm comfortable with who we have.
You were looking for the position. Did you advertise locally?
Actually, we didn't look for the position. It was there when I got there. Okay? It was done by the prior board. They brought, what was the prior board, wasn't it? Yeah. The prior board brought this entity on board. When I came into office, I looked at how many things I could change and make more efficient. And, you know, that's something that wasn't broken. I wanted to take care of things that I saw that I felt were ridiculous. I mean, we had a payroll department that was sitting tracking, you know, attendance with calendars, you know, on paper. When we have a computer system there that they're entering the payroll to, why can't they pull that information off? That's the stuff that I went to work on right away because that, to me, was drastic and we needed to take care of it. The financial manager was doing a fine job, And I applaud you that you want to go to all these meetings. I wish you luck, because I went through a year where I was bound and determined that I was going to be there from, 8 to 5, and I was going to mark my stuff down in my book, and I was going to go to all my meetings. And I can't tell you how mentally and physically exhausted I was over that period of time. You have to rely on your fellow commissioner to handle that and bring the information back and take your information to them and your opinion. Now, if there's something really, really serious going on, obviously all 3 commissioners ought to be there and dealing with it. But this is more than a full-time job, it's a commitment. And I've committed myself to this job for the last 4 years. And, you miss a lot of personal things sometimes doing that. But it's important to me because I do this job for my kids.
Mr. Snell, Mike, do you have a question?
You betcha. I got to get into this a little quick here a little bit. How about if you just elect commissioners? I've seen the budget reports. I'm going to compliment the system that they installed. It works. I've reviewed budget reports for 35 years. I've written budgets, probably in my second year in working for the Commonwealth. It's one of the first things I did. How about you just elect commissioners that can take the reports that are already being cranked out, which is a good setup, don't get me wrong, and learn how to read them, which I know how to read them. I think Mr. Morris alluded to it. And I think 3 commissioners working with a very proficient clerical supervisor, we can manage the budgets in the next 4 years. We will need, I believe, we need the financial advisors when it comes to our investments. We will need some services perhaps, but I hope the software system that's purchased is not proprietary, that we can access it, feed into it. I believe that we can, from what I understand. And my question now, I want to ask a question. We were talking about meetings. I know the commissioner's going to have their meeting in Renova here 2 weeks, I believe. Or Loganton, I'm sorry, Loganton. You had a meeting in Renova, which is a good idea. I think it's an excellent idea. I had mentioned town hall meetings. I'm not sure it's a good idea. I want to talk to the other 2 commissioners when I get elected. In one of your campaign pledges, and I'm going to address this, I think, to Commissioner Joel Long, Adam Long, yeah. And perhaps it was Adam's idea, I don't know whose idea it was, to take the commissioners' meetings to Renova and Loganton. If I recall, there was one in Loganton just prior to the primary, and another one in Renova just prior to the primary, and there's 2 now this fall. And my question simply is, do you feel that was sufficient? Did it meet your objectives? And if you're elected, if you're re-elected, would you do anything differently in that regard? I have ideas on what I would do. I'm going to hear perhaps what you would do differently.
I appreciate that, Pete, and I'll be happy to answer that. When I ran for office 4 years ago, I said I felt we need to get out and reach out to the public. The issue of going to Renovo and Logan, and I believe Adam said he wanted to go all over, really, and I said that I felt that it was hard for someone as geographically isolated as it seems like Loganton and Renovo are to get to Lock Haven for these meetings. So we should go out there and show them that we care. We should be there and meet with them, and even take staff so that we can address their concerns. I didn't feel that we needed to take it out to every municipality. Okay, as far as hearing from the public, believe me, you've probably heard it now as a candidate. When you are a commissioner, you will hear from the public no matter where you go. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter if you're having dinner or going groceries or what have you. If they have something, you're going to hear about it. And if you attend the functions that we have, you're going to find that you get a lot of input throughout that. The only reason I felt that the other 2 was because they were geographically isolated.
Yeah. Pete, Joel's correct. When I first started through this 8 years ago, one of my ideas was wanting to take the commissioners on the road and go to all different locations in the county. When Joel and I entered our first term and we got in and started to see a lot of the inner workings of what goes on behind the scenes for just one commissioner meeting that's held at the Garden Building, I then realized that there's absolutely no logistical way that you can take all those meetings, or go to all the different places for a meeting. It's hard enough to get everything lined up and ready to go to Renova for a meeting and go to Loganton for a meeting. I do agree with you. I like the idea of going out and having these town hall style meetings. The only concern that I have is if you have too many of those, then you won't have people coming to the commissioner meeting to actually see what's going on at your work session or at your voting meeting. So I agree with you to an extent with the town hall style meetings.
My question wasn't the number of places as much as the frequency, which there were only 2 during your